So it's 5 a.m. on a winter morning, sun's not out yet, still dark as you can see, and we are leaving the bright lights of the city of Joburg for the Kruger Park, to Marula to be specific. The shortest route from Joburg to Open Gate is via the N4 through Middelburg and Lydenburg. However, we choose to go N1 north through Polokwane and then through Tzaneen. This is a longer route, however, it's a better set of driving conditions. The nearest Kruger Gate to Marula is Open Gate. So the campsite is very conveniently located quite close to Open Gate as well as to the open shops, but it's also really nice in that it is separated from that, so it is not subject to the sort of bustle and traffic in and out of the gate and out of the reception shopping area. Once you get through Open Gate, it's just a couple of kilometers, I think about 2 or so, until you get to the reception area where you check in, and then it's another 3 or so kilometers to the campsite itself. The road to the campsite is tar from the Open Gate to the turn off, and then from the turn off of that main road to the campsite itself, which is about 2 or 3 kilometers, that is dirt road. It's in reasonable condition. You don't need a 4x4 or special vehicle to get there. Of course, there are some corrugations, so it might be a bit uncomfortable if you're driving a sedan, for example, that has low clearance and that sort of thing. However, you don't need a special vehicle to get here to the campsite. Marula Camp is exclusively for camping and caravans. One of the really cool things is that the campsite is located right on the Timbavati River. And what this means, of course, is that you can get a campsite that's looking out onto the river. We've actually chosen a campsite on the other side of the camping ground, and that gives us a view of the bush. And this is a really nice place to set up camp as well. It's a bit less crowded than the riverfront side, which of course is the more popular side, but there are some advantages to being on this side as well, because you do get some really cool wildlife viewing of stuff going past the fence and out in the veld right next to the campsite. We're here in the dry season, it's actually winter, and the river's not flowing. So I think if you come here in the summer when the river's flowing, the river campsites might be even better in that you probably will get more wildlife coming to drink water and better viewings on that side in the wet season. There's a fair amount of shade on the campsite. In fact, I think all the campsites have a good amount of shade. Even though we're here in winter, we have a really nice amount of shade. Note that there is no grass on the campsite, so these are not lawned campsites. The campsites do have electricity. For this, you need a really long extension cable because the electricity points can be quite far from your campsite. Case in point, our campsite where it's about 25 meters away, so it's almost at the end of the roll of our electrical extension. In addition to that, you also need a caravan plug if you are going to use a normal 13 amp plug. So you need a caravan socket adapter for your normal 13 amp plug. This is normally the case with SANParks campsites. Most of them, you do need an adapter to go from a caravan type socket to a 13 amp one. The campsites are not pre-assigned. This is standard operating procedure with most SANParks campsites, and also they're not clearly delineated. I think the thing that kind of points out that this is a campsite is that it's got a braai stand. There aren't bins at every single campsite, so that is not a clear indicator. It's normally the braai stand that says this is a campsite. There are central bin stations within the camping area, and a couple of the campsites have bins next to them. Like our campsite over here, we have a bin which is right next to us, of course, which our neighbors are using as well because it's close to all of us, which is fine, and I think you should expect that sort of thing when you're camping. There are taps within the greater campsite, but you've got to walk to them, so there aren't individual taps per campsite. Each campsite has a braai stand. Some of them are fixed like ours, and some of them are movable, so you can move it around to where you want on your campsite in particular. Our braai stand, which is a fixed braai stand, does need a bit of maintenance. However, the other campsites we've seen, the braai stands are in pretty good order. This is one of only 2 campsites in the Kruger National Park that is dedicated to camping and caravans. So there are no chalets here. It is strictly that you must bring your camping stuff or bring your caravan and set up. Officially, there are 20 sites where you can set up your tent or your caravan. You're allowed a maximum of 6 people per site. There are a set of communal bathrooms on the site, a men's and a ladies, of course, and this consists of the basic setup that you'd expect. There's a set of showers, and there is also a set of toilets, and then there is a set of wash basins as well. Reportedly, the ladies' bathroom also has a bath. Although there's electricity, there is no lighting, so you must bring your own lighting with you. There is, however, lighting at the kitchen and bathrooms. There's a communal kitchen area which has a set of 2-plate stoves, electrical stoves, where you can do some cooking if you want to do that. There is also a dishwashing area where you can go and sort out your dishwashing and your cutlery and so on. And in addition to that, there are 2 chest freezers on the side, so you can go and freeze your meat or your perishables in there if you so wish to. There's also a microwave, which is really quite convenient. I really like it when these campsites have a microwave because it gives you a convenient option for heating up your food, especially if you don't want to cook stuff or you're eating stuff leftovers from the day before as your lunch, which is what we typically do. So having a microwave is quite a nice little amenity to have on the camping site. To check in, you've got to report to open camp, or the reception area rather, which is where there is a reception area and there's a shop with your basic stuff that you might require, and there's also a set of chalets. The shop's really well stocked. It has all the basics and it has stuff like meat and so on. So it's quite nice to have those options when you're camping. You don't have to then drive a significant distance or bring all of this necessarily with you. So it is quite well stocked, and I think in the time that we've been here, we've been up and down there just for a few basics and so on. But I can imagine that if you're staying in the campsite over an extended period of time, then it is quite nice to have that type of facility to get your groceries and so on from. Just to reiterate, there is no shop at the campsite itself. There's no ATM, etc. However, it's just a short drive to the reception area, to the shop there. There's also a fuel station at the open gate, which is just a couple of kilometers further. So there is also easy access to fuel too. The nearest town of significance is Hoedspruit. That's about a 50-kilometer drive away, so that's also pretty close if you really want to go out and get into a large grocery shop and do some groceries, for example. You can easily get here with any kind of trailer or caravan, and there are numerous trailers and caravans on the site as we are camping here. This is a satellite camp, but even though it's a satellite camp, regular gate times apply. So if you're going to go out and do wildlife viewing, then you've got to make sure that you're back within the gate times that you're supposed to be inside of your camp and out of the park, so to speak. Note that the gate out of the campsite and into the campsite you've got to manually open yourself. So you've got to get out of your car, open the gate, drive out and close the gate as well. There is nobody manning a gate into the campsite. There's a caretaker on site who takes care of the basic maintenance and upkeep of the site. So he comes and empties your braai stander of ash every morning and the bins and so on. And I must say the camp is kept in really nice condition, and he's doing a fantastic job, and he's here like clockwork every single morning, and it's looking pretty good. In respect of activities on the site, well, there isn't really much to do on the site unless you, like us, like to just sit here and do a bit of bird watching and capture some of the birds. And of course, because you're right on the fence, there is wildlife that comes around and across the fence. Now, this is something to take note of as well. There are hyenas that frequent the fence along the campsite, and apparently this is because historically people have fed those hyenas, and you should please refrain from doing that. That is a very dangerous situation. Perhaps more for the hyena than for yourselves, because eventually they become habituated to this kind of behavior and they can become a pest or a nuisance or a danger, in which case those hyenas can be put down. So please refrain from doing that. It is quite novel, of course, every evening to be sitting and having hyenas running, well, walking up and down on the fence of the campsite. So that's pretty cool. Be careful of the baboons. There is a significant troop of baboons that raids the campsite from time to time. So obviously when you go out, then make sure you zip all your stuff up and take your food away with you so that it's not easily accessible. And of course, when you're on the campsite, just due diligence, be sensible and keep a lookout for them. We haven't had any trouble from them ourselves, but we have seen a couple of other people have some of their food raided. So something that we see quite often, I think people underestimate the strength of baboons. They are quite easily capable of ripping stuff apart. So I think make sure that you keep your food in a secure place in your car or your vehicle with you, or in the freezer, or whatever the case is. If you have a cooler box or something like that there and you close it and put something on top of it, they're quite capable of, and they're quite intelligent as well, so they're quite capable of opening cooler boxes up. And we've seen that at the campsite next to us, in which case a baboon just came over and lifted the cooler box, which had a box on top of it, and by the time we chased it away, it had already taken out a few morsels of food. This being a camp that's all the way into the veld, It's completely surrounded by veld and the Timbavati River on the one side, and so there are a couple of small animals that do get into the camp. So there has been, for example, report of a genet that's come into the campsite. In fact, we've had a glimpse of it as well. Unfortunately, we didn't manage to catch it on camera. And snakes potentially as well. There was a report of a black mamba in the campsite yesterday, and a puff adder as well. You know, these are things that you don't generally see because they're quite shy, but of course you can come across them. So I think just keep a sensible lookout for that sort of stuff, although the chances of it happening are relatively slim and they're almost always running away from you. That being said, of course, do keep your tent closed and zipped up, especially if you're going to go away or if you're sleeping, because that's a nice warm place. So what type of camper is this for? I think basically almost anybody. You don't need to have any special setup or any special equipment to camp here. The basics are all here. I think you've just got to bring your own lighting. That's probably the only thing that you really have to be concerned about. But otherwise, it's a pretty well set up camp. And I think if you particularly like camping in an area that's not so crowded and away from the shops and the vehicles and the traffic and so on, then this is the perfect campsite. I really enjoyed this campsite. I think of all the campsites we've been to in the Kruger National Park, so far this one is way up there as one of the favorites. Note that this is quite a popular campsite. It's quite difficult to get a booking here. So if you want to camp here, then you've got to book quite well in advance. So just take note of that. This is a very popular campsite. There are a limited number of camping facilities and it doesn't get crowded, which I quite like, but it is in the bush. It is quite isolated and you do get the feeling of being off camping in the park, you know, in the literal sense. So it is a very popular site and you've got to book in advance. As usual, I'll leave a link below in the description for where you can do your booking. So a quick recap, what is here? There is electricity, there are dustbins, there is water, there are bathrooms, there is a nice kitchen facility that has a couple of hobs and a microwave and a wash-up station as well. The bathrooms do have hot and cold water and the kitchen does have a set of freezers. That's also quite convenient. What is not here? There is no lighting at the campsite or at the campsites, so you've got to bring your own lighting with you. Otherwise, you have pretty much everything that you would basically require on a campsite. So my basic feelings about Marula, I really like it. I think it's a really great campsite. Like I said earlier, of all the Kruger National Park campsites that we've been to, this ranks high up there as one of my favorites. So I definitely recommend it. I have absolutely no reservations in recommending this campsite. So I hope you found this informative. I hope you liked the episode. If you did, then hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed already, then please do subscribe. It's great to get that support from you guys. From those of you that have subscribed, thank you. It's very much appreciated. And leave a comment below, ask a question, have a query, etc. Leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you guys. And it's always great to get that feedback from you as well. So until the next episode, go everywhere, see everything, have a great time.